We don't usually do fan service on OTR. I mean, we're making documentaries on history. But then a few weeks ago in one of those documentaries, Daria said something, just a throwaway line that we almost didn't use. Everything's better with Moo Krob. This struck a nerve. The comments section blew up. People started messaging our social media. Hell, one person even stopped me in the street just to say, everything's better with Moo Krob. It turns out that this is the life hack to Thai food. Whatever you're having, just add crispy pork belly. Actually, in a lot of the world, that's kind of the secret to everything. From the US to Europe, China to the Philippines, this might be the single ingredient most beloved by chefs and home cooks. And here in Bangkok, it's an obsession. So today, we're trying to understand it. What it is, how it got here, who makes the best version, and why in this city, everyone says,
everything's better with Moo Krob?
In the world's great financial markets, in places like New York, London, and Singapore, traders deal in stocks and bonds, currency, and commodities. Commodities trading is what makes the world go round. It's how Saudi oil ends up in Japanese gas stations, how grain from Iowa feeds Central Africa, and how the price of gold hedges against bear markets across the planet. But there was a time when there was another commodity bought and sold by traders and portfolio managers everywhere, a key component of international finance throughout the second half of the 20th century. That would be the market of pork belly. In the years after World War II, as the global economy boomed, pig farmers across Europe and the United States wanted to capitalize on seasonal demand for pork belly by taking advantage of what Uber might call surge pricing. So in 1961, traders in Chicago began listing pork belly on the futures market, and it took off. In futures trading, butchers would ship pork belly frozen, where speculators would agree to contracts to sell at a higher price when demand would rise. And as more and more people got rich and started selling bigger and bigger quantities, well, demand never stopped rising. In the US today, it's a $4 billion a year industry, and that's just talking about bacon. But still, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the international market. Pork belly is the cut used in Italy to make pancetta. It's a part of roasts in England and Bavaria. In Denmark, it's the national dish. It's an appetizer in Slavic countries, coated in chocolate in Ukraine, and grilled over coals, then eaten with bread in Greece. And then there's Asia. Over here, you can find it in bún chả and stuffed into banh mi's in Vietnam. It's served in adobo in the Philippines, the iconic guo bao in Taiwan, and in China's hongxiao rou, the favorite dish of Mao Zedong, and it's estimated that more than 70% of Koreans eat it at least once a week. And here in Thailand, well, their version, Moo Krob, is so beloved that even in a country with so much coastline, pork is the most popular protein, with per capita consumption more than 13 kilos or 30 pounds per year. The pork belly futures market would grow to become the biggest asset traded in the entire Chicago exchange, and it would even be referenced in Hollywood as an example of global finance. Forget GameStop, this was meteoric. But of course, it would collapse just as quickly as it had grown, because when something is this popular, there are only ups, no downs, and so there's no point in futures trading. It's a shame that of all the investors who lost money when big pork belly crashed, clearly none of them had ever thought to use their stockbroker cash to vacation in Thailand. Because if they'd seen the volume sold at just this one restaurant, well, they'd have realized the game was over. A word of warning, there's no vegetarian menu at Guay Jub Mr. Joe. There's nothing halal or kosher. What there is pork, and that's pretty much it. And the key to this third-generation business, the dish that got them in the Michelin Guide, well, that's this. Thailand's most famous Moo Krob.
You know, all of us, I think, once you call yourself a foodie, you have a tendency to kind of, I think, look down on some of the places that get so much hype. It's not this restaurant's fault that they've gotten as much hype as they have. The truth is, it's very, 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 very good. In terms of the skin, this is a 10 out of 10, which is impressive when you think about how much volume this place actually does.
Like most Moo Krob vendors in Bangkok, Guay Jub Mr. Joe has developed its own technique. According to some old articles, they start by choosing a lean cut with as little fat as possible, boil it first to par cook, and then let it marinate. Then they score and puncture the skin, marinate some more, and dry it thoroughly, which is what they consider the most important step in their process. Then it's time for frying, which they do at a medium temperature so it cooks evenly while both melting the fat and crisping up the skin. It's really good. I mean, they sell like 500 kilos of the stuff every single day. Which begs the question, if this is something that's so beloved here in Bangkok, well, why is Moo Krob pretty much anonymous overseas? I mean, what about this doesn't sound like it would be appealing to everyone, at least in cholesterol country like where I grew up? Well, it turns out there's actually a really good reason why you might never have heard of this stuff. And that's because the recipe is actually a whole lot more intense than what it sounds like.
คือการเลือกหมูกรอบเนี่ยเราต้องให้ได้หมูกรอบ5ชั้นเราต้องดูว่าตัวหมูตัวผู้ตัวเมียถ้าตัวผู้จะรสชาติจะไม่อร่อยถ้าตัวเมียรสชาติจะดีกว่าหนังต้องหนาประมาณ3มิลเนื้อ2มิลมัน5มิลแล้วก็เนื้ออีก3มิลแล้วก็ตบท้ายด้วยหนังเนื้ออีก2มิล
This is Chef Ga, and he's a Moo Krob master. You've seen him on the channel before. I mean, hell, if I had my way, we'd find a way to come here every single week. Spending $1.70 a portion for something so precise and technical, it kind of gives me flashbacks to calculus.
เอามาทำความสะอาดแล้วก็ไปต้มประมาณ20นาทีแล้วก็พักทิ้งไว้ครึ่งชั่วโมงแล้วก็ไปแช่น้ำส้มสายชู15นาทีแล้วเข้าเตาอบเข้าเตาอบแล้วก็เราเช็คเวลาตามมาคือ180องศา180องศา30นาทีแล้วก็ทิ้งไว้ให้แห้งประมาณครึ่งชั่วโมงแล้วก็อบใหม่อีกครึ่งชั่วโมงประมาณ2ชั่วโมงประมาณนี้ครับผม
We could stop here. This could be the end of the shoot. I'm fine for this to be everything. We just go home after this. This is probably the dish since we started the channel that makes me the happiest. I'm not exaggerating. Like, I don't know that anybody who hasn't tried to cook something like this can really understand just what a masterpiece this actually is. Like, you look at this and then you hear it. Like, if I took this and I just tapped it against this, you can hear, I'm putting it near my microphone, right? It sounds like it should be hard as a rock, and then you eat it, and it just melts. Unbelievable.
Now, this is usually the part in the video where I'd want to give you some context, to get into some history about the backstory of a dish. And I know I said right at the beginning that this video was fan service, but I wasn't really telling the truth. This is Adam service. See, I'm a grown man in a once-in-a-lifetime situation where my job lets me spend an entire day eating an epic version of bacon. What a ridiculous life it is to be a food YouTuber. Like, all right, honey, I gotta go to work. Time to eat a bunch of bacon. So far, I'm 2 plates in of some of the best pork belly on earth, and before we have to get serious, well, I kind of want to keep going. So maybe the best thing to do is to call up another food YouTuber who also lives this ridiculous life and ask him to show me where he goes to find the best Moo Krob.
เป็นอะไรดีอ่ะเป็นเหมือนแคบหมูเหรอหรือว่าคือมันกรอบมันพองแล้วก็มันเนื้อมันก็นุ่มอร่อยอย่างเงี้ยพี่ควรจะบอกกับเขาว่ายังไง
This is a place called Five Sisters on the Thonburi side of the river and a legendary spot in its own right for making some of the city's best crispy pork.
This is my kryptonite. Crispy pork is literally, like, I can't walk past a crispy pork stall no matter how much I've eaten that day without trying some. And this, for various reasons, which I will explain, is my favourite.
So Jasper was filming in the kitchen for a solid 15 minutes after the food came out. This has been sitting on the table for almost half an hour.
Yeah, and it's still
It's still crispy.
Yeah, right?
The obvious question, which there are some things that I think our channel does well. If I can be humble and say I think we do a pretty good job of understanding the context of a dish. I think we do a really job of explaining what something tastes like, because I'm not blessed with that ability. You want to understand what something actually tastes like? Watch Gary's channel. Hence,
Thank you.
I mean, again, if you ask me to describe the taste of crispy pork, it's crispy and it tastes like pork.
Pork, right?
I don't know much beyond how to explain that. So that's my first challenge to you is going to be, can you explain in a better way?
Well, I've been put on the spot a little bit here, but for context of this, for me, Thai food, all food, but Thai food especially, is about textures, right? Different flavors and different textures. So we've got soft pork underneath, we've got crispy, crunchy pork on top. You've got that beautiful layer of soft pork fat. They're going to poach this basically in a salt water and vinegar solution. That's going to season the pork. So it's quite salty, it's quite well seasoned as is. They're going to season that first, then they're going to try it, then they're going to fry it. So you've got salty, rich. Now we've got a little bit of sour from that pounded chili vinegar.
Does this need any crispy pork fat to add to the crispy pork in the noodles?
You can never have, in my opinion, as a Bangkok vet, I'd say, enough fried crispy pork.
สวัสดีค่ะเจ๊จูค่ะเจ๊จูก๋วยจั๊บน้ำข้นนะคะขายก๋วยจั๊บน้ำข้นเกาเหลาข้าวหมูกรอบปอเปี๊ยะสดค่ะใส่ใจเหมือนทำกินเองค่ะสโลแกนของร้านนะคะทุกสิ่งทุกอย่างถ้าใส่ใจออกมาดีออกมาอร่อยค่ะ
We can't call this healthy food.
Oh no.
I don't know if I'd call it comfort food either, because comfort food implies it's not every day. To me, this is an everyday thing.
Oh yeah.
Last week we had somebody ask when we did this video on hoi cod, is it possible to come to Bangkok and not have hoi cod and feel like you've had a proper trip here? And my answer is yes, of course, of course. It's not something that is that much a mainstay part of what has now become, maybe not Thai cuisine, but Bangkok cuisine.
Yeah.
Crispy pork, that's different.
No. This is a must. It's a must. For a true Bangkok experience, you cannot come here and not try crispy pork.
All right, it's not even lunchtime, and already we've had nine dishes showcasing the very best of 4 of Bangkok's Moo Krob masters. And we're starting to see a very clear pattern. No, I'm not talking about the skin or the seasoning or even the cooking technique, as each restaurant has their own way of perfecting crispy pork. I'm talking about this. 3 of the 4 places we've visited are actually known first and foremost as shops selling Guay Jub, which was not our intention, and it's honestly a little weird when you consider that in Bangkok, Guay Jub is a lot more obscure than Moo Krob. But maybe it's actually not a coincidence at all. All right, let me explain. So first of all, this is Guay Jub. It's a soup made from all kinds of the innards of the pig. I mean, there's meat, but there's also stuff like liver, kidney, intestine, and in some cases even more obscure things, like this cut which comes from the roof of the mouth. It's a humble, working-class meal from Chaozhou and something we referenced just last week when we did a video touching on all the stuff the Teochew migrants introduced to Thailand's culinary lexicon. But unlike things like oyster omelets, Guay Jub didn't really find success outside Chinatown, at least not at first. Around the same time as the first Teochew restaurants were springing up across the city, up north in China, the Qing dynasty was collapsing, the country was devolving into chaos, and much of that was centered in the south, where a young rebel named Sun Yat-sen had just led a revolution. Hundreds of thousands of Cantonese from the Pearl River Delta settled in Hong Kong and moved abroad to places like Malaysia, Singapore, Australia, San Francisco, and Thailand. It was the Cantonese right at the start of the 20th century who first introduced crispy pork, or at least their own version of it, to Bangkok, as part of a technique called siu mei, which translates to roasted flavor. Now, the Cantonese style of eating roasted meats, for example, crispy pork, is to serve it over rice, chopped up and often combining a few different components. Crispy pork, char siu or red pork, roasted duck. The Cantonese version of crispy pork called Siu Yuk is a lot softer than Thai Moo Krob, although it is famous for an incredibly crunchy layer of skin. And somehow, a few years after the Cantonese moved in alongside the Teochew, some Guay Jub vendor around the 1920s had the brilliant idea of adding Siu Yuk into their soup. I mean, it's basically a bowl of all kinds of pork, why not add some texture? Well, this would prove to be the magic formula. Before long, you could not serve Guay Jub in Bangkok without some Moo Krob, crispy pork. And since it was being served in a soup, well, it would need to be as crispy as humanly possible so it didn't soften or lose its integrity while sitting in a hot bowl of pork broth. Which is why, even with so much Moo Krob in Bangkok, the best is almost always said to be made by Guay Jub vendors. And by the way, if you're wondering about Chef Ga and why he's the exception, well, before he set up his amazing counter in his home neighborhood, he spent 10 years overseas working as a chef in Hong Kong. Now, the original way Moo Krob was served when it first came to Bangkok didn't disappear either. In fact, much more than Guay Jub, it was accepted by the mainstream, and it would take its own path, evolving into something known as Khao Moo Daeng. Alright, now Khao Moo Daeng, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's basically Thai fast food. This is something sold in every corner of almost the entire country. The Bangkok Post calls it Thailand's unofficial national dish. It's pretty straightforward, usually a choicer combination of Moo Krob, Chinese sausage, and a Thai take on something called red pork, served with spring onions and half of a hard-boiled duck egg, and all smothered in a fluorescent gravy made from pork stock, fermented soybean paste, sugar, and soy sauce, thickened with cornstarch and often tinted red with food coloring. Now, with a few exceptions, this is not considered gourmet. It's rare for vendors to actually prepare their own pork, they just buy it from the local factory, chop it up, and sell it. It's gained massive popularity as Thailand industrialized. It's cheap, fast, and filling, and a staple in markets, food courts, and factory towns, where it's almost always named after the province of Nakhon Pathom. Not because it's from there, but because that's where Thailand's best pork is said to come from, which is a really nice way to paint a beautiful picture of a product that's usually, well, I mean, again, it's fast food. But look at what it actually is. It's red pork, crispy pork belly, and other meats served over rice with a sauce made from stock. It's literally Hong Kong siu mein. That's what it is, just with 100 years or so to evolve into Thai cuisine. Well, actually 115 years if I'm being specific, which we know because that's how long the oldest Cantonese-style meat shop in Thailand has been in business. It's a place somewhere in between the old-school version and the modern Thai staple, and somewhere that, just like Mr. Joe, is a Michelin-rated Bangkok institution, a restaurant known among other things for crispy pork belly, a shop called Prachak Roast Duck.
All right, so as Gary was telling us, the classic topping for the Thai-style crispy pork or any kind of meats over rice is going to be sweet soy sauce with some fresh green chilies. I got 2 plates here at Prachak Roast Duck, which is since 1909. This is one of Bangkok's real iconic old restaurants that somehow I think we've never filmed at before. Just haven't filmed here. But how would I explain Prachak Roast Duck? It's a Hong Kong style meat counter in a very Thailand kind of way. The famous duck here, you do not get the crispy skin like you expected in Hong Kong. It's a little disappointing the first time you try it until you appreciate the fact that it's not supposed to be crispy, it's just supposed to be eaten with an absolutely mind-blowing sauce. So it's always better than I remember. Their sauce is dynamite.
Prachak Roast Duck specializes in duck. I mean, of course, that's in the name. And if I'm going to be honest, if I wasn't here to film the history of Moo Krob, we'd be better served just sticking to the specialty. Their crispy pork is fine, but first off, it's not the star of the show, and second, well, once again, this is Thai fast food. Just a really early version of it.
The duck is good, sauce is good, everything else is kind of superfluous, but you cannot tell the story of Moo Krob in Bangkok without a plate of stuff like this, and this is the oldest one in the city, as far as I know, that serves this style of food by a lot. 1909. So 115 years. This place has just been scooping out plates of red pork, crispy pork, and especially their roast duck, served over rice with their own red gravy.
All right, to really do this story justice, let me introduce you to my favorite city on earth. This is Hong Kong. A dense and unfathomable maze of narrow alleys built into a rugged landscape centered around Victoria Harbor, which might be the only place I've ever been that manages to feel both wild and mysterious, and also the center of everything. When it comes to the cuisine, Hong Kong has it all. A thriving international food scene, some of the world's best restaurants, and streets lined with da pai dong selling wok fried crab, dim sum restaurants with old push carts, and beloved snacks like egg waffles and bowls of noodle soup. But to me, Hong Kong is all about one thing, something that if I had to choose my final meal, it might be the choice. The undisputable, hands down, world's best roasted meats. You can forget everything else. This is the taste of Hong Kong. From char siu, or honey-glazed pork, to roasted duck with skin so crispy it outshines even the best stuff from Beijing, to the meaty and succulent roast goose, the tender white-cut chicken, and the ultimate guilty pleasure, suckling pig, there's no better lunch anywhere than a plate of rice topped with this stuff cooked by siu mein masters, and paired with a few dipping sauces and some blanched choy sum or gai lan. This is no simple Khao Moo Daeng. This is heaven. And then there's the Siu Yuk, or crispy roasted pork belly. Now, in the old days, Siu Yuk was perhaps the signature dish of all of Hong Kong. It was made traditionally with a whole pig roasted in dugout pits at least 8 feet deep over the embers of a wood fire. The pork would be cooked in intervals, raised and lowered, rested, and treated with salt and spices. It's an all-day process, intensive and by now almost extinct. In 1986, Hong Kong banned the construction of new charcoal pits, and now only one survives in the entire city. When you find Siu Yuk today, it's usually made in what's called an Apollo oven, named after the American spacecraft which it's said to resemble. It's actually what we just saw with Gary, by the way, at Five Sisters. Anyway, because these ovens are smaller than the massive underground pits, beginning in the 20th century, vendors had to switch from roasting whole pigs to simply choosing the best cut, which of course was pork belly. Eating Siu Yuk in Hong Kong is something truly special. A massively complex and labor-intensive dish served either plain or with mustard as a dipping sauce, a spicy kick that gives just that final pop of flavor to something crispy on the outside and so soft and tender it almost melts in your mouth. It's this dish that is what became crispy pork in Bangkok, Singapore, and wherever Cantonese immigrants arrived at the start of the 20th century. But if the dish I'm describing doesn't sound like what you might find in your local Chinatown, hell, if it doesn't sound like what we just saw at Prachak roast duck, well, that's because actually making Hong Kong-style Siu Yuk is so unbelievably complicated that it makes even Thai Moo Krob seem like a peanut butter sandwich. And I know that because a few years ago, one of my closest friends spent like half a year trying to get it right.
This week, we wanted to show you how to make Siu Yuk, Cantonese crispy roast pork belly. It's a great dish, a Cha San Teng classic, and when done right has nice layers of lean, fat, and of course that wonderfully crispy skin. This is 1.5 kilos of pork belly. Poke and puncture the skin. Blanch for 10 minutes or so at a light boil. Dry your pork belly thoroughly. So generally speaking, the style that you're looking at right here, it's like the almond, the Macau style, right? Where it has this kind of very flat skin. The way that it is made is really annoying.
This is Chris from Chinese Cooking Demystified, the best English language Chinese cooking channel on the internet. And I asked him to join me at one of Bangkok's only real Hong Kong-style chop shops to help me explain what makes this dish so unique and complex.
So one of the things that it's really particular about is the skin itself. If you notice that there's actually not like those big bubbles on the skin. And something that is very particular, and especially if you're not doing like a home cooking kind of hack with it, is very annoying to do, is what you have to do is you have the thing that punctures the skin. I'm sure you can get a picture somewhere, right? The thing that punctures the skin, you have to puncture the skin, but you can only hit the layer of fat that's under the skin. You can't go any further, right? And the whole idea with really puncturing the skin is that the oil from the pork itself, it's going to be rendering off and actually almost kind of frying the skin, right? So the texture itself is going to be more crispy instead of crunchy, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so let's get to the main point of this, which is you have spent an inordinately long time of your life, and these are days that you will never get back, trying to figure out how to master cooking this. And Chris, you know, if you've watched this channel for a long time, you know Chris and I have been very close friends for a really long time. Chris does not get angry. You know, Chris is a very level-headed guy. He's the one who's always calming me down, who's, you know, a firecracker. Except making this. This is one of the few times I've ever seen you actually get really frustrated. This is a hard dish to make.
Dude, this whole genre of Cantonese roast meats are all so surprisingly difficult. So it's like, you take a look at something like char siu, you think like, oh, okay, it's barbecue pork. Like, how hard can it be, right? And you can kind of do a quick little Google, see what's on YouTube or whatever, make something that looks char siu-esque. You can get 70% of the way there pretty easily, but that remaining 30% to get it exactly how it should be is 99% of the work.
Around the time Chris and his wife Steph started their channel in 2017, they set to work attempting to master the technique of making Siu Yuk, understanding the restaurant version and applying it to a home kitchen. It took months until that video was ready for upload.
The way that we did was kind of like a hack. It can get you there, but basically what you'll do is you'll marinate the pork, specifically this side, right? And then there's different ways to crack that nut. Lots of times you can also soak the skin in vinegar, right? That can kind of help loosen it up a little bit. And then the general thing is you need to puncture the skin, as I was saying, exactly, not too far, but far enough in. And then salt's rubbed on the outside of it, right? And then it's baked at first at a very low temperature so that the oil kind of drips off, and so like this fat actually renders. That's why when you're eating the Hong Kong style, it doesn't feel that fatty because a lot of the fat itself renders off in kind of like the lower temperature fry, right? Or the lower temperature one. Then what you do is you take the thing and then you put it in the hanging oven, you're blasting it on high heat. And at that point, it'll actually scorch the skin. It'll blacken it. Take it out, you scrape off the blackened bits. That's why it's flat, right? You can kind of see there's still some blackened bits here.
That's interesting.
Right?
Okay.
And then that's when you take it. Oh, you need to completely cool it down between those two steps. That's very important. After that, you can take it and then you hang it in your window, this kind of thing. But it also needs to come completely cooled down again. Then you take it and you roast it. Let's do it.
I've been staring at this for a while.
Yeah, I know. I haven't been eating crispy pork all day, so. Yeah, it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's actually really good.
Yeah.
Hong Kong style Siu Yuk made properly is one of my all-time favorite dishes. But so is Moo Krob, and as we mentioned right at the beginning, pork belly in the hands of pretty much any culture can evolve into something spectacular. The beautiful thing about this ingredient is that it's kind of a blank slate. I mean, just think about the massive list we mentioned earlier, and how there are iconic pork belly dishes that are smoked, cured, fried, baked, roasted, braised, grilled, and yeah, the chocolate one. Today, even just focusing on one single preparation, we've had Siu Yuk or Moo Krob in soup, on top of egg noodles, stir-fried with garlic and chili, chopped up over rice and served by itself with some sweet soy sauce or mustard for dipping. Every technique meant to bring out a different element of the meat itself. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe it's actually that versatility that makes Moo Krob so iconic here in Thailand. See, the fun in Thai cuisine is that everything is about achieving a perfect balance in both flavor and texture. It was something we explored in our video about pad krapao, that maybe that dish is best known as ground pork and holy basil, but really you can use almost anything. You just have to be up to the task of tweaking and adjusting until it's all just right. It's the reason why so many famous Thai dishes can actually be made with a lot of different main ingredients. Green curry can be at its very best with chicken, beef, or fish balls, but you can't just trade out the protein without also adjusting everything else to bring it into balance. Same with tom yum, which when we did that video, we tasted a whole bunch of different main ingredients, and it's all tom yum in its own way. Lab, the Lao Isan specialty, is another one. may be simplified when served abroad, but here it's totally normal to find it with pork, chicken, duck, catfish, raw beef, or even Moo Krob. It's not the ingredient of crispy pork by itself that captivated Thailand, it's what the chefs here do with it that makes it so special. Once it found its niche in the market and started appealing to a Thai audience, eventually it became another arrow in the quiver, an amazing color in the artist's palette that took everyday stuff, first Guay Jub and then so much more, and gave it all a new dimension, a new taste and texture and character that might not have revolutionized Thai cuisine, but it certainly fit in. And for our last stop of the day, well, we're finishing at one Bangkok street cart that takes that idea to an all-time level, cooking everyday local classics for an everyday local crowd, with the twist being that it's all made with Moo Krob.
We've reached the end of the road. This has been, I was trying to count up the grams, like how many kilos of Moo Krob I've eaten today. And I made the choice to stop counting because it was really depressing. So basically, we've been talking how a lot of different dishes are capable of being made with Moo Krob. Well, this is a restaurant that just does that takes famous Thai dishes and makes them with crispy pork. So we have pad kapow. We have a noodle dish. This one's made with thin glass noodles, some gailan, Chinese broccoli, chili. I don't know this dish. Gary Butler was telling us about this when we were with him. Looks like there's some egg in there as well. And then this, which is a yellow curry, what you usually will see with seafood, crab meat, something like that. And it's curry powder, it's dairy or milk, it's num prik pao, chili paste, and here with pork belly. They also do tom yum, which was very tempting, but we've already had that on the channel and we can just show you some clips of it. There you go. So yeah, let's try that first. You notice I've been talking for a while. I'm prolonging having to eat. I've never been in a position where I'm so excited to try something and also at the same time just so mind-numbingly full that I can barely taste anything. I forgot to get the Moo Krob. I'm like, oh yeah, the curry's good. I forgot what we were here for. Oh yeah. That's all for you guys. This is for me. Even if you forget about the Moo Krob, that is a fantastic pad kapow. Just the basil, chili seasonings all in balance. That is perfect. I am so full. Like every bite I'm like, can I stop? One last thing on my Mount Everest of Moo Krob, and that's these noodles. Because at this point, what are you gonna do? You might as well just add some more carbs, some more heaviness to a day that is quite heavy to begin with. I think I am well on my way to a brand new world record for the most crispy pork eaten in one single day.
Subscribe to the channel for more from OTR. Thank you so much to everyone who supports us on Patreon. It really helps to keep us going. You can find the links to our Patreon as well as all of our social media if you check the description box below. So long.